say, what are the two most important days of your life? Most people said birthday is the first day, and then everybody struggled on the second day. And I said the second day is when you realize why you were born to come to this world.
Beautiful.
Why did God ask you to come? What's your purpose, right?
You don't wait till you're 50 to start investing. And so even with your philanthropy, start small, start early, build on it, let it compound. You'll learn along the way.
So I would only encourage people not to view this as giving back, not to view this as philanthropy. View this for self-development.
Even to spend the money that I had earned at minimum wage in some department store.
You needed permission.
I needed permission, right? So that was our value system in our house, that there's no mine and yours in money.
The SVP model is engaged philanthropy, where partners who want to go see the change they can make on the ground should join the SVP. Don't join here because it's a nice network. Don't join here because it's a like-minded group of people only. We're a lovely group of people, but we also want to make an impact.
Yeah. We keep calling philanthropy the risk capital of change, and we keep talking about it everywhere. Do you think we're really taking the risks that we ought to take? Hi, I'm Naghma Mulla, and this is Give It a Go, a podcast about why giving matters and how it's changing. My guests for today don't do philanthropy the old-fashioned way. Amita Chauhan runs one of India's biggest education groups, but her real focus? Raising a generation that actually cares. Govind Iyer helps the country's most powerful boardrooms think beyond profit. Together, they're redefining what impact really looks like. So, let's begin in conversation with Govind and Amita. Hello, Amita. Hello, Govind. I've known you for more than a decade, I think, individually as good friends, as well as very strong members of the SVP community. But today, when we start this conversation, I actually want to start from your personal journeys, and not with philanthropy, but with really that moment when you realized that you had access to a certain amount of affluence, certain amount of wealth that differentiated you from most of the people of this country. So, what was that? Was there one moment? What's that journey like? So, Amita, maybe you can begin.
Sure. Thanks for having us on the podcast. Really excited. For me, my parents came from very, very humble beginnings. They were both born and brought up here in Bombay. And my father was one of 7 siblings. And the birth order was 3 brothers followed by 4 sisters. And my paternal grandmother took a look at the boys and said, 1 doctor, 1 engineer, 1 accountant.
Of course.
My father was the one selected to be a doctor, and he did become a doctor. He went to medical school here in Bombay and studied in the library because they didn't have money to bring the books home even. So when there was a wave of doctors that migrated to the US in the late 60s, and he joined that. And so I was born and brought up in the US in a very simple, middle class kind of upbringing, very grounded. And I met my husband when he was studying in the US and didn't realize that he came from a large kind of business background. And so when I moved to Bombay, it was a very big change for me, a very different lifestyle. And that's probably when it occurred to me that, yes, things have changed dramatically in my access to money and affluence.
And while it sounds really cool, it is not a smooth journey to realize that's the kind of dimension focus that your life has taken. How did you work on that?
It was challenging in the beginning. I think that I was always identified as somebody's daughter-in-law or somebody's wife, which I never thought that would be me. And over time, I've come to understand it a lot better. I think I was lucky when I first moved to Bombay that a few of the right things clicked into place early for me. Some of the right friendships, some of the right associations, some of the correct career moves. And that's really helped me on my journey.
As you're speaking, it resonates more because whenever we check in with someone, people are talking about their lives. The impact that those early years have on how we process whatever's happening to us later is so huge. And we tend to kind of forget that. Was that the way it worked for you, Govind? Like, how did your rise in Egon's Ender and many of the things that you're doing now, was there one moment of inflection or that you would remember?
Yeah, I would say, coincidentally, we have a similar story that my mother was a doctor, my father was a doctor. And my mother actually came from in Chennai, where her father and their ancestors were very, very rich, actually, at one point of time. I mean, she had like Rolls Royces at home, going to college in
Wow.
Rolls Royce, etc. But in her lifetime, unfortunately, my grandfather went bankrupt.
Oh.
So when they got married, when my father and mother got married, there was actually no income. And her uncle hosted the reception because they didn't have the money to host the reception. So she came from high to low, and through our journey in school and college from till I turned about 15 or so, I only saw the fact that my parents never stopped giving me what I wanted, but they were very frugal about life in general. Because my father was also just a BSc chemist working as a sales rep at Park Davis. So we were a very simple family in that sense. Although my mother came from landed gentry, if I had to use that term.
Yeah.
What happened for me is I realized the value of the change is when I was attending a Founders Day, what's called Founders Day session at, speech day at Cathedral, where there was a guest speaker who asked a question to the audience to say, what are the two most important days of your life? And most people said birthday is the first day. And then everybody struggled on the second day. It could have been when I got into college, or I had a grandchild, or an X and Y. And he said the second day is when you realize why you were born to come to this world.
Beautiful. Why
did God ask you to come? What's your purpose, right? And as I started reflecting on that, I realized, Naghma, that I had been the beneficiary of a lot of goodness of many people around me, my school teachers, my college teachers, my friends. I was around late 40s at that stage. And I said, I think if I survive my life, my family will be well taken care of. I can start thinking of doing a lot more in philanthropy. That was a pivotal moment for me that made me say, giving my time, but also my money was important.
Yeah.
And I'd say so somewhere around mid-40s is when I really felt that need to give. During my school days, I did do social service, but that was sort of school act. The big moment really happened at that point of time.
Yeah. So today when we see a lot of young people delay philanthropy because there's much to do, there's a lot to earn, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to understand, because you want to basically, impact exactly where it's needed, solve exactly the right problems. In your experience of kind of right from the time that you realized there was this kind of inequity and you are on the good side of life now, to finding your way into philanthropy, if there were some things that you would like to, simply point out to folks who are in the beginning of that journey, what would it look like?
So I'd say, it's very interesting at Social Venture Partners. We are seeing now that there are about 36 people who have joined SVP who are less than 35 years of age. And when I asked them, why are you doing it, etc., a lot of them said we got into this curiosity. But now they're saying we're staying on because it's helping us in our journey of discovery of our life. By working with individuals in the social sector who have much lesser resources, much lesser means, a greater passion than most of us have in the corporate world. They're not doing a job, they're doing a mission. So they say when they see those embodied in these individuals, it brings us a lot of happiness. So I would only encourage people not to view this as giving back, not to view this as philanthropy, view this for self-development. I mean, I think working in the sector will help you develop yourself better. If it's and that is a constant journey in life, Naghma. It's not like after 50 only you have to develop, or after 60.
Yeah.
And today's generations, fortunately, I think earn enough to keep themselves self-sufficient to a large degree. So giving a little bit of your time towards doing something which will help you develop better is something that I think exists.
Yeah.
And the other thing that, organizations like yours, Naghma, and others have created so much more space for volunteerism. There's so much more organizations out there now that can encourage youngsters to get in and get volunteering. That wasn't there 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the social sector didn't exist in terms of the development it is today. But I think two factors. One is, I think, view it as self-development. Don't view it as giving. Don't view it as charity. Don't view it as philanthropy. And the second is, now there are many more opportunities that you can find yourself attached to.
Yeah. You would say the same thing, or you would have a different take?
Agree with Govind, but we'll just add one thing, is that take a for-profit example. You don't wait till you're 50 to start investing. You don't wait till you know about every single fund, every single stock. You don't consider yourself a master before you start investing. You start with your SIPs in your 30s and you build on that.
That's a good
And
point.
so even with your philanthropy, start small, start early, build on it, let it compound. You'll learn along the way.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful thought. When you, again, many years ago, I think your first brush with, seeing the economic sense of even doing good was with rural handlooms. What provoked you to kind of step into it? Or again, did that happen to you, or did you kind of venture out?
Just good fortune, good luck. When I moved to Bombay, I met Richard and Sally Holkar, who worked in Maheshwar, Madhya Pradesh, a rural part of Madhya Pradesh, on the banks of the Narmada, reviving Maheshwari handloom. And I used to travel up there quite frequently. I think having that grounding of going to a rural area and seeing how people actually lived in India, because Bombay is a bubble, it doesn't represent true existence of most Indians.
Correct.
Spending that time was a super foundation for me. And seeing how that one project brought about a massive change, stopped urban migration, empowered women, generated income, preserved our traditional heritage and craft, all in one place, really just gave me a fantastic foundation for, I think, what was to come later. And I think another thing that really struck me was the dignity with which people lived in their original, authentic place. And the people that we meet in Bombay who have come here to become our Uber drivers and our fruitwalas, so much has been taken away from them. And they're rubbed raw by the experience. And they've lost so much of their identity and dignity.
Correct.
And I think that it would be wonderful if we could find more ways for people to be able to live in the place that they belong to.
Yes, so true. And did you have any such first pivotal moment as well, Govind?
I think the first pivotal moment for me was in my first time when I heard a not-for-profit speak to an audience. And I just loved what they were doing. I was moved to tears in some ways. And then I just asked them like some reasonably simple, but I think a corporate question of, so what does it take to make you grow and what can we do to support you? And I thought it was a simple question coming out of a genuine intent to say, I want to help you. Little did I realize that I didn't know the reality of that not-for-profit. Later on, the not-for-profit reached out to one of my colleagues and said, I don't want to work with this organization if he's part of it. Because he doesn't get us. He wants to grow. I don't have
They said that about you?
Yeah.
Oh.
And he doesn't get us because we don't have salaries for next month. We don't have enough food for the next 3 months. So where am I thinking of growth? I'm thinking of sustainability. I'm talking of, can I even be existential 6 months from now? So come and help me be that. To me, that's the moment I realized that to be a good listener is very critical, and to ask the right questions before giving a perspective.
Yes.
That's the day my journey of self-learning started in the philanthropy sector.
I want to dwell a little more on this discussion that we're having right now, because what we're also talking about is having almost two very different lived experiences in the same day, right?
Yeah.
You have a home and an office that is giving you incredible sense of power and control. And then you're also intentionally moving into a universe where you may have all the ideas, but absolutely no control. And you realize how much is really not in our hands. That's a little crazy to manage, and you're doing it intentionally. Now, in this, when you, again, I ask this because there's also a lot of guilt associated with philanthropy. And it is also important to identify, talk about it, and place it where it is. When you buy something that you really like, which we know which costs X amount, which probably is bigger than the budget of an NGO that you are supporting, it's okay to be happy about it. And how does that become a struggle in the beginning?
My philosophy is to play hard and give big. Right?
Yeah.
There's a reason that I've been blessed with this. And I think that part of it is to enjoy it, but part of it is also to see what can I do with it? How can I amplify good causes? How can I make sure that impact is created? I think if you go down the guilt path, it makes everything very difficult.
Yeah, and I agree with Amita. I think there are two different ways to look at this, right? One is how you want to lead your life. And that doesn't mean you have to lead it with lack of frugality, but it also means that you lead it with the way you've been brought up. I'll give you a simple example, right, of my father and me. My father did have an air conditioning unit at his home till he was probably 45 or something, right? Or that age profile, mid 70s, late 70s, I don't recollect when. I grew up from day one with an air conditioner in my room. Now, for me to go and live without an air conditioner is quite difficult because I've been conditioned. The reality is my father can still live without an air conditioner. We could live without an air conditioner because he was used to it before. In the same way, if I'm leading a lifestyle, which I think is probably, extravagant in the books of some others, I completely agree with them, by the way, but it's the way I want to. But that should not come in the way of my feeling that I have to give to what I think is important as causes. So the way I look at that, Naghma, how I deal with that contradiction is, beyond a certain point, I think I'm bordering on being extravagant. Okay, or at that point, it's not because of philanthropy, because my own value system, I say stop.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm having this interesting conversation, completely different topic, about how much is required to keep a person alive. Okay, and you can go to the extreme ends of doing that.
Yeah.
And in that process, what are you achieving for that person, for yourself, versus others, right? So it's there's no right answer to this. It's everybody's individual journey.
Yes.
And I don't feel guilt at all. I've decided that I will give to myself and also provide, as what I call giving forward, which is helping others grow to their journey, is something that I believe strongly in. And so I that's how I feel.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, there's a difference between being frugal and being stingy. So I'm still a big bargain shopper. I love waiting for things to go on sale. All that gives me a real kick.
You're my sister.
And I think we should be frugal, right? Where possible, it is nice to use a value system to think about your money. But I don't think being stingy is also appropriate, right?
Yeah. And operating out of guilt is never going to take us much
Exactly.
far. When you do you think, and both of you, do you think that women and men process wealth and philanthropies differently? Have you seen that happen very differently? No, you're very, very sure. Maybe you want to go first.
I experience it quite often, actually. Yeah. So I think I'll start by saying women are born to be givers. Whether it's themselves, whether it's the way they raise children, whether it is so I think they're givers to the natural core. Very rarely have I seen a situation where if somebody comes and asks a woman for something, they will ever get a no. Right? Vice versa, men may hesitate. Right? That's number one. So I'll start with that. However, when it comes to giving, protecting themselves or protecting their family, they tend to be a lot more cautious in the giving side of financial giving, because they're very conscious of what that will do to the family. And my experience comes from living my promise. In the living my promise journey, I've seen how it's somewhere a more rational decision sometimes to take a decision to give 50% of your wealth towards philanthropy. And my conversation with many men, it tends to be a little easier than with women. Not because the women have a different view on it, or they don't want to do it. It's more out of that fear of, will my family, my children, not have the ability to get what they deserve, right?
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing stories that we have in every Living My Promise retreat every year about the story. And that's, I do believe there's a big difference the way they think about it, because I don't think it comes, but I'm talking giving money. Giving money versus giving themselves. I think giving themselves, they are off the charts.
Yeah.
Giving money, I think they're more cautious.
That I agree. You agree with that?
I agree with it to an extent. What I see more of is women getting to make decisions a lot more about where the giving is going, versus it originally just residing with the male head of the family. I'm really happy to see that couples are getting together and working on
They're
this.
having more conversations.
More conversations, and there's a better understanding between the two of them. I think men often view it more transactionally, whereas women look at it with more empathy.
Yeah, that is true. And you see so many of these couples in SVP.
Yeah.
And coming to SVP, we have to start with, was SVP the point where your friendship began, or is this even more dated? How did your paths cross?
My favorite story. So Govind and I, our oldest children are the same age, and they happen to be admitted to the same university in the US. So we went to drop them to university, my husband and I, and Govind and Preeti. And my husband had to leave a day earlier. So I didn't know Govind very well, but of course everybody knew Govind. I'm like, oh, you know Govind, right? Govind's son is going there too. You know Govind. So of course Govind's like some superstar of Bombay. And so I approach him and I say, listen, I need a ride back. It was upstate New York and we were going back into New York City. So I said, I need a ride back. Can I drive with you? So he said, yeah, sure. And so basically the story I say is that Govind held me hostage in a moving car for 4 hours and talked to me about SVP. I had nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I was trapped.
And she was the first partner that joined Bombay.
I had no choice. I didn't think I would ever emerge otherwise.
Just in case you'd be in another car journey.
He kept telling me about philanthropy, and by that point, I had already been with Govind Iyer for maybe 8 years. I was already in the system. So I'd said to him, why do you want me as a partner? You're talking about people who want to start their giving journey or learn about philanthropy. I'm pretty sorted. I'm good. Thank you. He said, you know stuff, right? I said, yeah, I know stuff. You'll be okay now? I said, yeah, I'm fine. Then you teach the others. Oh, totally fell into his trap. I just got sucked into his
You know where he gets his reputation from.
Yes. Voluntold. There's no volunteer with Govind. You're just voluntold what you'll be doing. And so that's my version of the story.
You have the same version?
Ditto version. But if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have had the motivation to start SVP Mumbai. That much I must say. That getting the first partner was the trigger.
Yeah.
And today now we have 210, so it's a large number.
210 in Bombay and more than 750 across India.
No.
So it's been a journey.
Amazing. No, but I remember Govind at that time because I think in around the same year.
Around the same year, same year.
He found Vidya and me, and I was not in a car for 4 hours, but but I get you. But Govind, at that time, SVP was obviously an idea, and volunteering from people of privilege was not that common.
No.
Giving time, people traveling at 5 p.m. on very, very busy Bombay roads to come be there in person and listen and interact with stories that they have really no need to be interacting with. So you did compel enough people to do that. So let's stay with SVP for some time and just understand how you wanted to do it, and then what did that whole first year look like?
So I think it's been a journey. We have 8 cities now. So every first year, the first cities have been different. But I think the biggest joy for me really is when people have discovered that they get to be better versions of themselves.
Yes. So 1 minute, let's talk about the objective of SVP so that, whoever's listening can kind of identify.
I think social venture partners as a concept is really meant to be, the word venture is critical in that, is to work with a not-for-profit for 3 years to help them achieve their goals. Not set our goals, but their goals. And the idea is to work in an engaged manner with them. So give them some capital, but also give them a lot of time. And a lot of time is, I'm talking about a couple of hours a month. I'm not talking sitting on, them every day of the month, right? So reviewing them for every month, talking to them, seeing where they need help, unlocking obstacles for them, helping. Because I can say this without any kind of hesitation, that I've met some of the best leaders in the not-for-profit sector in terms of passion, intent, commitment. And many of them don't want to scale beyond a point, and I'm completely fine with that, as long as they are happy delivering greater quality work and with depth. In the corporate world, scale is the only way to grow generally.
Correct.
It is seen as if you're not growing, that means you are stagnating. And for me, that shift in mantra is what is amazing when I speak to leaders who want to join SVP. I say, join us with a view to 3 years, invest time, but achieve their goals, not your goals. Now, you might help them grow, you might help them pivot, but that should come from their desire, not your desire. So what's been really meaningful for me at the SVP model is partners come in together, people like you, Amita, me. We sit together, we identify a cause, we identify some NGOs, and then we work with them over a 3-year period to help them achieve their goals of community impact. We are not delivering on the ground. We are enabling them to deliver on the ground. So that's the first thing. Can we take credit for their success? Not at all. Can we take attribution of saying we help them find their success? Probably yes. So the SVP model is engaged philanthropy, where partners who want to go see the change they can make on the ground should join the SVP. Don't join here to give a small token of money. Don't join here because it's a nice network. Don't join here because it's a like-minded group of people only. We're a lovely group of people, but we also want to make an impact. That is how SVP has evolved. And I think we've been very privileged to see how the journey has evolved. People like Amita and 700 others have made a huge difference to the others. So we have now a buddy system where everybody who comes in new gets a buddy to help them in their journey. As we've grown bigger and bigger, we found new ways to get people engaged.
Yes.
When you joined, we were like sub 10 partners. So that time, we were buddies to each other. But now with 200, you have to create some institutionalization.
It's phenomenal, and the energy that is in the room when everybody comes together.
Yeah. And so that's really the story of SVP. And I think the beauty has been to work with 220 NGOs over the last 10 years. And those NGOs, as of last count, not a single one of them has shut down, despite COVID, which is a big one. Not a single one of them has degrown since we were there with them. So they've at least allowed themselves to grow in the pace they want to. And for me, growth is even in learning capabilities. So it could be just a school education learning program getting better and better. It doesn't mean I've gone to 20 schools. In the same school, my learning education's got better. So I think that's what gives me.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to something you said in a while. But before that, it's 3 years when you were leading the Bombay chapter. Also saw a remarkable increase in partners, in the way people were participating. And that takes a lot of intentional energy. Because we're again speaking about it's not a model that is well understood all over. People are coming in with great expectations. Sometimes people are coming in thinking my 5 hours are going to change the world. So there is a journey of rationalizing one's expectations, which is not a kind journey, because everyone comes in thinking that there will be a huge amount of gratification. And it's fair to think of that from the outside. How did you manage those conversations and still manage to keep the momentum going up the way you did?
I took over from Govind in 2019. And in 2020, as we all know, the pandemic hit. I think the pandemic was a pivotal point as well, because the poverty that we had all gotten very comfortable with living with was suddenly like the curtain was pulled back and we could see it all right in front of us. People walking, hundreds of kilometers home, people in cities not having access to basic things. So that was a real time where people felt like sat up and said, okay, we're going to do something about this. And our partners started getting inquiries from their friends, their colleagues to say, what is SVP? I can see you're doing something. How do I get involved? And so there was a lot of each person bringing one more person along. And our family grew very quickly at that time with people who came in with a strong intent to do something about the challenges of COVID. Even post-COVID, I think that the people we attract are people who step back and say, life has given me much more than I ever expected, and I want to do something. But yes, what you're saying is right. A lot of them come in with an idealistic notion of what an NGO is, an idealistic notion of how quickly change can come about. And it does take some expectation setting. It does take immersion into NGO programs. It takes spending time on the ground to temper those into a point where people move away from saying, I want gratification from this, to saying, I feel gratitude that I can do this.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But I must tell you one thing Amita did really well. is she helped build systems and processes also, which is required for institutions to grow.
Yeah.
And I give her credit for the fact that those 3 or 4 years during COVID, we had growth at SVP Mumbai, but we had very steady and sustainable growth.
Yes.
And that's, I think, a big plus. The other thing is, which she talked about, are the people, right? We had people who ran billion-dollar businesses who came in and started working with 45 lakh funded NGOs. Now just think of, but they came in thinking they will change them and make them,
Yeah.
$200 million business.
Yeah.
And then realized very quickly that it's not possible. And it's quite amazing to see how their own journeys have changed. And to me, that gives so much joy, just
Yes.
hearing them speak now and saying, there was one person I know who had a flourishing career in private equity and decided to give it all up. And now is only working in the social sector because of the pivot of SVP.
Incredible.
And he was 40s, right? And so I think it's important to recognize that we are not doing anything. We're just providing a platform, an opportunity, an environment for people to discover themselves.
Yes. No, it's great that you create a space where there's anchorage for so many folks with intention and capability. But I want to stay with this for a while and say, yes, it's very important that there is a system so that there is a method to this madness. Otherwise, a lot of well-intentioned people together the intention can fizzle out.
Completely.
And here I want to also bring in, we keep saying bridging the philanthropy and non-philanthropy gap, or the development and philanthropy gap. And I see that coming in well in SVP. And here, the professional part of your life, I feel from a distance, has impacted the way you've managed the momentum at SVP, right? So I wanted a little bit of conversation on that, because we have many, many networks all over. A lot of them boil down to good WhatsApp energies, if ever. Bringing them together in person regularly, keeping them excited, more engaged, helping the non-believers to, kind of cross over is not simply because there was a good anchorage point. There is a lot of intentional, and your experience in HR, your experience with systems brings that magic together. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how, if someone really wants to create that universe of people who want to do good but also need to show that work happening, what are some of the things that we have to be mindful in networks?
I think the first thing I would say is it's very important to have trust. Trust in each other that you're doing the right thing, right? Many people joke, like she was joking about the voluntold angle of my life, which I've been called out many times. But it's really the people I know who'll get the benefit, right? So if I had look at success ratio, I've had 90% success in that. People whom I've pushed into doing something have typically been very happy at what they've done. It's rarely been that 90% were left doing that. So to me, I also take the effort to understand what the nuance is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if anybody out there is looking at doing something in any area, whether social sector or otherwise, even in my Egon Zehnder days, the hat that I was wearing, Naghma, my first conversation with a candidate would not be, hey, there's this great job at XYZ, would you like to look at it? It would be, tell me about where you want to go in your life. Start with where you want to go in your journey, and then I'll decide whether even to provoke the comment about that job or not. I might turn and say, listen, this is not for you. And then I say, tell me more about it. But I said, I'll tell you, but it's not for you, because you've just explained to me that you want to work in a small organization. You want to be in Bombay all the rest of your life. This is a multinational that's reasonably large, that's going to ask you to go abroad 3 years later. It doesn't serve your purpose. Why are you even looking?
Yeah.
So I think my approach to any situation is understand the other person's first, to be able to then get them to do what you want to. In the CSR space, just pivoting to another journey, right? I have a challenge with the fact that a lot of not-for-profits are so passionate about what they do. They believe the CSR person should also be as passionate as them. When the reality is that CSR leaders look at things very differently.
Correct.
So you need to understand what drives them, and then see whether your passion matches up with theirs. And don't change many of them say, okay, I only work in Nasik, but now I'll start working in Bombay because you can give money in Bombay. That is mission alignment has changed. Don't do that, because that is like taking you away from what your core is.
Yeah.
So I think in many phases of life, if there's one thing that I would leave behind is understand the other person better than yourself first before you try to make a change in them.
Yes.
Or encourage them to do something else.
Correct.
That's what worked for me.
This is important also because these days we keep hearing the word storytelling,
yeah,
which actually dilutes what you've just said. Storytelling makes personally me feel like we're making something up.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah, correct.
I'm telling you with stories,
Right.
all right, like as if we need to make some things up here. You know, so let's for 1 minute call it narrative and how we
That's a better word.
narrate.
That's a better
What
word.
is
Narrative is a much
yeah,
better
but everything's boiled down to tell the story the way it needs to be told. Basically, responding to the listener or responding to people who hear that dilutes the entire purpose and also makes it all feel like a show that's being put on. You worked for maybe more decades in the communication journey also of very important institutions like Give India, in its first avatar, and now even the SPP also.
Yeah.
How does one, like if I'm an NGO with limited resources, it is very confusing to be in different rooms of philanthropists who speak very differently. Somebody wants me to spend more on org development. Somebody wants me to be more frugal. Someone wants to hear. It becomes very confusing, and I think some part of this responsibility is on the philanthropists. We have more wherewithal to come to a reasonable journey of what is this story that we really want to hear.
It's storytelling, yes, has become too much of a catchphrase that everyone's saying now. Tell your story well, your elevator pitch, etc. I think NGOs really have to focus on being authentic. And for me, the biggest win for an NGO is to bring people to their work rather than going to the philanthropist, right? Because being on the ground, being immersed in the program, in the location, gives you a completely different perspective. When I sit in a boardroom and see a pitch deck, I start thinking of, well, why don't they try this? Or why can't they do this? Or why don't they get a bigger space? But when I get down to the location and I see the nuances, the challenges, the headwinds that are coming at them all the time, I temper my questions. I try to put myself in their shoes and walk that journey with them. And that makes a big difference. So the best thing NGOs can do is bring people to them rather than go to people. And I know I'm not saying it's easy.
No, it's important to also
all.
say it.
It's not easy because people say, but if I sit in a room full of SVP partners and I ask people how many people take a domestic flight at least once a month, I would say 75% will put up their hands. If you're going to another city, if you're going out of Bombay to see a factory or a plant, there's always something you can see around that, right? The minute you leave Bombay, there's 1,000 things to see in any corner of India you go to. And I've made it a bit of a mission in the past 12 months to get out as much as I can and see as much as I can. And it's been fascinating. And I would encourage it to anyone who has the time and wherewithal. Add a half day to your existing business travel. Add one more night and you will see amazing things. You will come back with a much deeper understanding and you will be able to find what excites you, where you think your efforts are going to be meaningful, and align with that.
Yes. And it is very important. The way we see it now has come a lot from our early journeys and our experience in life. When you sit down with your own children, when you talk about, okay, I'm going to be a living my promise participant, I want to give away so much wealth, or I want to part with that charity. How does one have those conversations? Because there's also that part of the child that may think, it belongs to me, don't give it away. So there is a certain amount of raising we have to do.
It happened at the back, at the dining table just behind you. I think it's, I've had this conversation with my children, but I've also talked to many other children afterwards. I think they recognize very early on that if you give them an education, a value system, and also, our generation has been positively benefited by the economic growth of India since the 90s, right? So recognizing there could be another, down cycle in the next 30 years. So planning for some reserves for them, I don't think is a bad idea. So when I first had the conversation, Naghma, with my son, my oldest boy just started working. My youngest boy was 13, and it was an interesting conversation. My older boy said, "Yeah, I'll do my masters on my own. I don't need to fund it. I'll fund it myself." And my middle boy said, it's living my promise says during your lifetime or in your will. So you're not really going anywhere today. So, assuming that, 70, 80, the ho jayega, by that time I'll be fully self-independent. Okay. So it's not like you meet all the way tomorrow, right, Dad? So I said, no, I'm not. And the youngest boy, being diplomatic as he is, he turned around and said to his mother, what will mom do? So I said, okay, that's your way of saying what's going to happen to me, right? And the reality is they did not know what the denominator is. Right? You don't know what the wealth, so you don't know what that 50% would be. Is it 50% of 1 lakh? Is it 50% of 50 lakhs? What is it? But, I just told them, I said, listen, if you trust me and you believe that I'll provide for your education and your life and everything else, are you okay with it? And then I got them to speak to one or two other people as well. And I took the call. What was most gratifying for me wasn't this, actually. What was most gratifying for me was my middle son was in New York. And one of our Living My Promise signatories, Venkat, was doing an event in New York. And my son said, I'll go and speak over there and say why I believe that my father should do this.
Oh.
So he went with 4 other children, his grandmother's daughter and 2 others. And all 4 of them spoke about why they think their parents should do this. To me, that was the essence of a value system that made a difference to me.
Man, that's such a proud moment to have, to experience. You've had a chance to speak to your children about wealth, about just, it's not simply about giving away wealth or something like that, but the experiences that you've had, sharing it with them, because they've entered a very different world from where you were coming from. How do you manage that conversation?
So growing up in the US, I did the typical teenager thing there, which I guess people don't do anymore, but I used to work in part-time jobs in the summer at a department store and earn money, not a huge amount. And then I would tell my parents, okay, I'm going to buy this thing with it. And they would say, there's nothing like your money and my money in this house. So even to spend the money that I had earned at minimum wage in some department store,
you needed permission.
I needed permission, right? So that was our value system in our house, that there's no mine and yours and money.
Socialist.
Yeah, socialist. And we had to consult each other before big decisions. For my children, I would say that they've just been incredibly lucky, I think, to grow up on the correct side of the internet, the social media craze. They grew up very simply, very grounded, and are almost embarrassed to tell new acquaintances about their family background. Often they make up something.
That is true, by the way. That is true. I witnessed it.
So sweet.
So I think we've had conversations. They know that we are incredibly fortunate. And again, of course, there's something kept aside for security, for their future, but there's still a lot more we can do. And they want to be part of it. My daughter studied public health and is pretty interested in coming back to India, understanding the public health space in India much better, and seeing what she can do in that. My son is a very simple guy. He's really simple. And so he genuinely doesn't think about it. They don't think about it in terms of, oh, we have this, or how much do we have, or, what's going to happen to it. Yeah. They're living their lives, doing their thing, and they know that, they'll be taken care of. But there's a lot that we're going to also do on the philanthropy
There's
side.
a lot of consciousness.
Yeah.
And
but her son is very interesting. He doesn't think about all this, but he thinks about giving joy to others. And that's his way through music. So he's a musician and he performs. He's not thinking of the commercial consequences of performance. He's thinking about the joyfulness.
Nice parental backstop.
But no, because he thinks of the joyfulness. No, I look at it positively. He looks at the joyfulness of what the music does to others.
No, that's such beautiful values, because I think children do watch their parents more than they listen to them, right?
Yeah.
And it does get imbibed.
They spent a lot of time in the US growing up there in the summers. And they were very much in charge of loading dishwashers, folding laundry, making their own beds. And so they have a very good balance between self-sufficiency, but also collapsing into the comfort of home and Bombay when they're here. Yeah.
When your own journeys, as well as watching so many people go through it, is there something that stands out as the most counterintuitive lesson people learn in the journey of giving or participating in ecosystems such as these?
I think when people start, they're very early in their journey and they think of giving as something that's very tangible, very direct. I don't think they realize how much behavior change is involved in changing the paradigm and actually addressing some of our very, what Amit likes to call big sticky problems. It's not simply about distributing books or midday meals, right? If all we had to do to fix our education was do these things, then we pretty much would have been on top of it by now, right? But it's about patriarchy, it's about health, it's about access, it's about a variety of factors that feed into, can a child get a quality education at a reasonable cost in India? And so I think that's the thing that people don't realize when they're getting into it. And again, only if you spend time listening, observing,
Then
reading,
it's rewarding.
then it's rewarding.
Yeah. You see the same thing, Govind?
So for me, it's been thinking of the question, counterintuitive. I can only talk for an example. A recent example, I had gone to this lovely not-for-profit called Search at Gadchiroli. And for me, what blew my mind away was how Dr. Bhang has been able to create probably one of the best community health systems I've seen in India, with people who are just not, I wouldn't use the word not literate, but 4th standard pass, 7th standard pass. How just through discipline, through education of how to do the right thing and a process, he's been able to make a transformation of lives happen. I just think it was not possible. And I remember you asking earlier about the head and the heart. I was sitting in the morning on that day and listening to him, and I had like 18 questions to ask. And then when Amita mentioned this point, I went to the field and I came back, I had one question. Because then I actually saw the community health worker delivering the value. My entire perspective changed. I said, the 17 questions don't matter. Because when you're sitting in a boardroom, you're sitting in a room, you're looking at a presentation, you think of all possibilities. But when you see the reality, you think of what's possible.
I think
There's a very big
also,
difference.
when you're sitting in the boardroom and you're watching a presentation, the way we are trained to in our work, we are thinking of the 10 things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
You know, the 100 reasons why it will not work. You know, what can go wrong, how I can, help you make it better, all of that. When you go into the field, to me, the whole miracle is that everything is working in spite of everything that needs to go wrong.
You're so right.
Everything logically, basis our understanding, education, all of that cannot work. But still, these humble, simple folks are just making it work.
But that's the thing, that determination and that single-minded focus is what helps those founders succeed. And so the least we can do is pitch up with resources to help them.
Which brings me to really my final question, which I've been struggling with a lot. This is like, we keep calling philanthropy the risk capital of change. And we keep talking about it everywhere. Do you think we're really taking the risks that we ought to take?
You mean, are we taking enough risk?
Enough risks. Like, yes. I mean, are we, there's, like I said, if we go in the field, we realize how much can go wrong. Then we look at pitch decks and how to make it, on paper, the most risk averse, the most foolproof, the most sure shot, result oriented plan. And if we just think of some of the big deals that have happened in the past, they happened without, either they happened because people wanted it enough and were given space to do it. So we are also at a crossroads, right? Because we've got so many systems, lessons, and understandings. Are these becoming our problems instead of our enablers when we're saying we take risks?
I think we should consider it as patient capital versus risk capital and see whether we can actually make it put to use to drive systemic change versus just change for today. I think it doesn't mean you don't solve today's problems, but you also look at how you can minimize today's problems by driving the core anchoring of why that change is happening. To give a specific example, Naghma, on this is, you could solve a problem of education today by giving capital to a school, financial capital to a school that's doing a good job. Or you can turn around and say, how can I build a better teacher system to get more schools to benefit from it, right? Now, that's risk capital, my mind, because you never may develop the teacher system. But the school I see is functioning day to day, so I can give the money to that school and ensure that 4 children get educated today or 4 scholarships are given out. That's the easiest way to see my money being deployed.
Yeah.
But if I took that out and I said, somebody else can do that, let me build a school system where I have teachers coming out so that I can have this sustainable over a period of time. I think that piece of risk capital is what's missing. I feel if more people are tuned towards saying, this looks like a certainty of accomplishment. So, and if I take the same thing about startups in Silicon Valley or in Bangalore, I mean, the risk we take with startups is like at a different level. It's not even rational risk, it's irrational risk, right?
Yeah.
But yet we know 1 out of 10 will succeed. But when it comes to not-for-profits, we're not prepared for 5 out of 10. We're not prepared for 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
We want 10 out of 10. So to me, the entire thinking in the sector has to change to say, working in the social sector is not a risk, it's a necessity. And how you view it is a function of your own mindset on where you want to play. But that's...
We were talking about this earlier.
I think we hang out too much because I was using the same exact example that we want only 1 out of 10, startups.
She had even the same numerator and denominator.
Exactly. We hang out too much.
But if you had to look into the future, and all the efforts that you're putting in right now to build really the field for philanthropists, in 20 years, if you had to see the change, would this be the change you want to see, or is this plus in how people give?
I think it would be great to see younger and younger people getting involved. And I think we will, for sure, because the issues that are going to come up are going to be much more relevant and hard-hitting for them. Climate is going to be a big thing. It's going to be a big thing. It should already be, but it's not. It's gaining traction, but due to the complexity of it, I think not enough of us are applying ourselves, and I'll count myself amongst those. I don't understand it well, and so I'm not sure where to start. So if organizations help break it down better and help philanthropists, young ones, understand what they can do, it will accelerate the investment in that area for sure, is my sense.
I would say 20 years from now, if we continue to invest our time and our efforts towards building a more robust social sector organizations, not necessarily grassroots, I'm thinking even the entire system, call it on policy or on advocacy, I think India will be a far better place than before. But I do want to stress it should be done with our own capital. I think the more and more we can do it with our own capital from India, the more and more India will survive. Because today, I think there's enough capital in the hands of professionals, philanthropists, industrialists out there. I just don't think they know where to give it. And I think it's people like you, Naghma, who doing podcasts like this and other stories that come out and narratives that come out that talk about, like, for example, speaking for myself, seeing what the Grow Fund did with the organizations you did has enabled those Grow Fund organizations to get benefit from many others.
Yeah.
So I think we need many such, not 1, not 2, not 5 a year. We need about 100 a year. And if we are able to create that ecosystem in 20 years, I think we'll be successful. If it's the same group of 30 people that are going to keep doing it, I'm not sure move the needle too much.
Yes.
I do want to give us credit that in 10 years, we moved the needle a lot. If I go back to 2010, maybe 9, 10, that time frame, I could think of very few organizations. I know Dasra was there very. I know Edelgive had just started, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 2008.
2008, yeah. You just started. Can I think of 10 other organizations at that point? No. I can't think of too much. And so I think we have evolved a lot.
Yeah.
We need to pat ourselves on the back that we have come together as groups and done things. But I think we need to accelerate that journey a little more.
Yeah. Is there any quote, any words of wisdom, anything that has stayed with you and anchors you in your journey and what you're doing?
So the last couple of years, I've been watching Mackenzie Scott. So impressed with her approach, her trust-based philanthropy, the way she's been giving away money fast. Something that she said really stuck with me, which is that individual wealth is the product of collective effort and of systems that enable a few people but pose hurdles to most. And to me, that's really powerful.
Very powerful. Very powerful.
I'm keeping quiet.
This is like mic drop.
Mic drop. I don't have any.
I'm glad we asked them right in the end.
I can only say that, reading Chuck Feeney's book early on was probably an inspiration for me. I can't think of a quote, but the fact that he chose to do what he did at the stage of life he was at is probably been with me for a long time. And the other thing that is, again, not a quote, but it's something that I feel is very important for us to think about. It's a very simple question, and is, the goodness that we have in our lives is because of everybody around us. And giving doesn't mean giving only money. It means also giving gratitude, saying thank you 10 times a day, or saying sorry when you feel that you've done something wrong. Doesn't demean you. It actually helps you build relationships. So for me, the most important thing that I have always taken is, don't ever assume that you're right always. Be prepared to also accept that others can be better than you are. And that's the only way we'll go through a learning journey. So it stayed with me as a mantra that I try to adopt every day, to say I can learn from somebody something new today. That's all I would say.
I had thought this will be a very, very good, fun and exciting morning, but this is even better than I thought. Like I said, I've been watching you for years. What you bring with your collaborative values, your respect for each other and for the people who join you in this endeavor, and also the way you've been at it. I think there's nothing more rewarding than consistency. And when two such people come together consistently, hitting the nail on the head again and again and again, it will lead to some good.
Let's ask the people whose nails are being hit.
We'll ignore them.
Yeah, we're the hammers. Let's have the nails.
No, we'll just do with the hammers, right? No, but thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for sharing such beautiful anecdotes and parts of your life with us, and wish you a lot of success.
Thank you, Naghma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish I said about Govind is his incredible energy and ability to build communities.
Oh, yeah.
He's so good at it.
Yeah.
And he's so good at taking people along in the journey with him.
Something that I truly admire about him, and his very patient way of doing it. And I'm the other side of the coin where I'm very impatient. And
You could have fooled me.
calm.
Look at what you do.
He's so calm and good about it.